I want to start off. You know, you guys have worked on a lot of sci-fi projects. What keeps you guys coming back to the genre?
Science fiction allows you to tell stories out of the specific and more into the theoretical. So sometimes there's issues that if you try to put in a more grounded show, a more kind of today show, the politics and the arguments of today cloud the ability to tell that story. But once you tell it in a science fiction arena, suddenly people who couldn't talk about an issue in any other way can look at the episode and have a real meaningful discussion about the ideas that are being presented.
Very true.
Yeah, the other thing is that you get to play with your imagination more than you could on, say, a cop show or a medical show where you have to try to stick to the reality of life, and you can sort of escape from life and just play.
Absolutely. And with the arc, what is it that drew you to that story when you came up with it? That this would make a really good TV show.
For me, it's this idea of what would happen if all the people who were meant to be in charge, all the people who were meant to be the doctors, the scientists, what if they were all gone? How would the rest of the people be able to? It's like imagine the Death Star, afterwards. So, what did they do with the remaining people, right? So this to me was really fascinating, and our early conversations is what fired us up. It's one thing to have studied to be a doctor. It's another to be the only doctor alive that has to take care of everybody, all the survivors, and have never been in that position before. So that aspect of it is, I think, the thing that made us excited about doing the show, and again allowed us to have the show really focus on who the characters are and what stories they're going through.
So one of the things that's really interesting about the show is that right off the bat, our characters are thrown into a catastrophic situation right before we meet them. Haven't met their personalities, haven't met, what kind of their traits are. Was there any challenges in kind of starting off all these characters in heightened situations where some of them may become their best selves and some of them may actually turn into their worst selves?
Well, I think that's the fun of it is that one decision we made very early on is that we would never do an action sequence just to have an action sequence. We would never have a crisis just for a crisis. That it always was a way in which to exposit who the characters were. In other words, seeing how they react to that crisis tells you who they are. So even though that opening sequence, you don't know any of them, the fact that you see Garnett spring into action to wake everybody up and get them out of there tells you a lot about who she is. And then even as that episode went on, the way in which did they look at it selfishly? Did they look at it selflessly? It revealed a lot of things about those characters.
I mean, the thing about Dean's pilot that both thrilled me and scared me when I first read it was, most pilots start off with the first 2 acts or so, getting to meet the characters and seeing, somebody's, acts this way because they lost their child, or, that kind of thing. And this just starts off with boom, there they are, fighting the fight, and which has got pluses and minuses. The minus for as a writer is that you don't get to establish them. You have to establish them through the story, which I think Dean did really well in the pilot, and then we continued with. So it's a different structure than you usually see.
In setting up the because we're about 100 years into the future, I believe. What were the early conversations to kind of set the rules for what you guys believe Earth could be like, or well, we don't really see we don't see Earth, but what the technology, what are some of the rules that you guys set for the show?
Well, one thing is it had to be in bad enough shape to warrant the Ark program, so that kind of automatically put us in place. And the technology is, it's only 100 years from now, and some technology moves really fast, and some doesn't move very fast at all. And I think we were very kind of cognizant of that, trying to stick to what, we're not going to have warp engines and transporters in 100 years. So we stayed away from that kind of thing.
Also, if the world is ending, a lot of the innovation is going to go to survival. So you may not be using your innovation to get the newest Apple Watch or the newest smart TV. You've got to get off the planet. It's kind of like everything's focused on that. But I think the other thing that we thought was interesting was to try and show, well, right now you've got a lot of billionaires creating their own space programs. What happens in a future where more billionaires get involved in that, and the space race is entirely run by billionaires. The government's ability to regulate or to influence gets less and less and less. You know, today you can't build a rocket without passing a whole lot of regulations. You have to make sure it's safe. But if you have billionaires who are racing against time to do their own things, they're going to decide what's essential and what's not essential. And those may be good decisions, but they might also be terrible decisions. And so,
Or selfish decisions.
yeah. So we wanted to explore what is a ship like this, like built by someone with the best of intentions, but unregulated, unguarded, unsupervised.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, that was my next question is, we've seen in the past, just in human history, ships like the Titanic and we've seen also in the NASA program that sometimes it goes to not necessarily the best concept, but the lowest bidder. Does that play a factor in this ship with what's going on?
Well, that and that they were built in a rush.
But even in the pilot, when they can't figure out how to crack the software, the young Alicia says, "Oh yeah, I recognize this code. This is like the cheapest code you could possibly buy, and that's why it fails all the time."
And just a little bit more on the characters. As the episode goes on, you guys film more. You guys get to know them a little bit better, and the actors also get to know them better. Is there ever that happened, and maybe you guys maybe pivot from the original idea that you had? Maybe somebody's stepping up more as a leader, and that you thought maybe somebody more sinister than you thought.
Well, it's a little more subtle than that, but yeah, the actors sometimes will play a nuance in a line, and I wrote the line and didn't mean that nuance, but it was brilliant what they did, and so it'll make us go down another path. So yeah, the answer is yes. We've got the show structured out. We knew where we were going, the whole 12 episodes. But the path to get there can alter, as we go.
It's always a mistake if you're overly invested in your plan and you're not watching what's happening on set, because really interesting and exciting things happen on set. And I remember getting calls from Jonathan saying, "Did you see the way he looked at that girl? Maybe there's a relationship there we didn't think about," or things like that. And if you're open to it, you can really evolve your show in really fascinating and unexpected ways.